And Kate, I'll hand over to you.
Thanks, Rebecca. Hi, everybody. Good evening. Thanks for joining me tonight. It's nice to see everybody. And for those of you I can't see, it's nice to know you're there. I don't want to sort of lecture you tonight. I just want to sort of talk about the state we're in, really. The state we're in York, the state we're in the UK, the state we're in the world, and where inequality sort of fits, and why it's important that we think about it as an issue, and then sort of think a little bit about some solutions. Rebecca's asked me to speak for about 15 minutes, and then we're going to hear from others, and then there'll be time for discussion with you. So if you've got questions or comments, you want to sort of respond to something I'm saying, do hold on to those thoughts. Because we're stuck in our pandemic still at the moment. It seems like a long time now, doesn't it? And I was just looking at the news this evening, and we've got our health minister sort of sitting there and going, we're not actually going to do plan B right now, and we'll just wait and see. And it feels like we're in for another really tough winter in terms of the pandemic. It's a long time since we were back there at the start of it, where we weren't quite sure whether it was just going to be a little flare up of an epidemic. And I think the last time I sort of sat down seriously with the figures, we've got about 4 million deaths worldwide. And our numbers are shooting up again in the UK at the moment, numbers of deaths and infections. But right from the start, there's been a chorus of voices calling for post-pandemic societal change on a really big scale. And you will all have noticed that too, that right from the start of COVID, people have been talking about needing a new normal, building back better. My favourite is bouncing beyond, bounce into a fresh new future. And there are commissions all over the place, all over the world, and I've been sitting on some of them, sort of local, national, international level, and they're talking about transformations and new economic thinking and sustainable equality and how we make a healthier, safer and fairer world. All levels of government actually talking about recovery and resilience. I didn't say doing, I did just say talking, but they are at least speaking the kind of language we would want to hear. So there's really an urgent sort of desire to do that kind of visioning about what the world might look like before it's too late, before we miss an opportunity to create a better world. And a lot of us feel that we've had that opportunity before. We had it with the global financial crisis. We heard the same rhetoric, we had the same thinking going on, but we didn't do anything. So I think it is worthwhile at this moment if we kind of rewind a little bit and think about what we know, what the evidence was telling us about inequality and the damaging impact it was having even before COVID. And there is now a really robust body of research, a lot of it, it's from all over the world, from lots of different disciplines, from lots of different researchers. Comes from sociology, it comes from criminology, it comes from epidemiology, and we all know what an epidemiologist is now, even if we didn't a couple of years ago. Linking economic inequalities, the gap between rich and poor, with a really wide range of health and social problems. So all of the problems that are more common at the bottom of society, that have what we call a social gradient, that are more prevalent at the bottom, those get worse when the gap between rich and poor is bigger in different societies. And in my books with Richard Wilkinson, The Spirit Level, which was published more than 10 years ago now, and in Inner Level, which was published in 2018, we were reporting on our own research and on that of other people, showing that income inequality affects health. You get shorter life expectancies, more infant mortality, higher death rates, more chronic disease, more mental illness. more obesity, more poorer levels of child well-being in more unequal places, and also showing that more unequal places have more violence. That's everything from more intimate partner violence through to bullying, homicides, child maltreatment. We've shown that children and young people do less well in schools in terms of their social mobility, their educational attainment, their chances of dropping out. Drug use, alcohol abuse, gambling are higher in more unequal societies. There's more status consumption, there's more consumerism, and civic and cultural participation decline. So you're less likely to get people coming to an event like this in a more unequal society. And what's really happening is that social comparisons become really toxic. So in societies where there's a lot of inequality, people's anxieties about status increase, and some are consumed with depression and anxiety, while others respond with self-enhancing narcissism. And societies which are doing badly on one of these things are doing badly on all of them. So there's this real sort of degradation of the health and social well-being of the whole population when you've got high levels of inequality. And we've always thought that inequality was divisive, you know, that it got in the way of good social relationships. But now we do have those data, and the data showing that the effects are really big. The differences between societies are really large, and that inequality affects almost all of us. Now, those who are sort of politically opposed to egalitarianism, to social justice, to equality as political issues, responded to that growing body of research by saying that there's no evidence of causation, that these were just correlations. That's a tactic that's really familiar to public health research, and actually that's what the tobacco industry did when they were faced with the research that showed that smoking caused lung cancer. They'd say, oh, you can't do any experiments, it's just called correlations. It's what the oil companies have done in response to the evidence of climate change. It's what food and drink conglomerates do, you know, to resist the evidence that their products are fueling the obesity epidemic. And so to counteract that resistance, you know, we've done a fair amount of work systematically reviewing within a sort of causal framework the evidence as a whole. You know, we've crunched those numbers, we've shown that those associations are indeed causal. And I think that point of view is now starting to be accepted. I think the evidence is now accepted. And so 10 years, we published The Spirit Lab in 2009, so it's, you know, just a little over 10 years, that there has been a real change in the rhetoric of acceptance of inequality as a damaging thing for society. So to some extent, I think we've won that particular battle. It hasn't changed the trajectories of different societies in health. You know, we have not seen them becoming more equal over that time. We haven't seen much political action, but I think that acceptance is a first step. So first you need to know there's a problem, then you need to be talking about it and recognize it, and maybe that's the step towards action.
Indeed.
I think a really important development over the last 10 years, and one where the Equality Trust's been at the heart of looking at this, and we helped set up the Equality Trust in 2009 to promote greater equality and to educate about it, is that there's a lot more attention these days to the ways in which inequalities intersect with one another, and the ways that those intersecting inequalities increase the stresses and pressures that people experience in their day-to-day lives. And in the past year, I chaired the Greater Manchester Independent Inequalities Commission, and we developed a framework for sort of thinking about those intersecting and interacting inequalities and their consequences. And what that framework was really about was recognizing that there are, within society, there are what we might call horizontal inequalities, demographic inequalities that cut across society. And by that, I mean our differences in age, differences related to sex and gender identities, differences related to ethnicity or disability, sexual orientation, religious affiliation, caring responsibilities, language, migrant status, asylum seeking, and more. And thank you, someone's put in the chat that we do need to recognise that intersectionality was developed by leading Black feminists, and that's true. But it's a useful framework for us thinking about really, really wide sets of intersecting inequalities. And along with those inequalities that I just mentioned, we have within the UK inequalities that are related to where we live, whether we're in the north versus the south, whether we're in England versus being in Scotland or Wales, where different policies and politics are pursued. There are differences between cities and towns and rural areas. There are differences between neighbourhoods and communities. So those inequalities are a reality for us as well. And then cutting across those, you can think of those as sort of weaving a web of inequalities across society. Driving down through those are the inequalities of power, of voice and participation, inequalities of income and wealth and employment, kinds of things that I've studied a lot in the past. But things like access to care and support, things like access to decent housing, things like education and skills, and those inequalities sort of running vertically through society. And the way that these vertical inequalities press down and intersect creates this sort of lived experience at the sharp end of inequalities that too many people suffer in a very unequal society. And so if you're wanting to tackle inequalities, you do need to be thinking about how women's and girls' experiences differ to men and boys, how different ethnic groups are experiencing those vertical inequalities, who's less enfranchised, who has less power, who has less voice, as well as who has less resources, fewer assets, and less access to the kinds they need. And I think my point here is that no one kind of inequality is more important than the others. It is the enmeshment that we need to sort of pay attention to and be sensitive to. Those interacting inequalities produce intergenerational, self-perpetuating cycles of entrenched inequality. And that's what we need to bear in mind when we're thinking about social justice, and we're thinking what we can do to shine a light on paths towards social justice. I'm almost finished. I'll just say a couple of things. So the pandemic has really shone a light for us on a lot of pre-existing inequalities. If we look at who died, if we look at who became sick and sickest, if we look at who was most exposed and who was unable to shield themselves, protect themselves and protect their families, and who suffered most from the measures that were taken to try and reduce infection rates, who suffered most from lockdown. The existing health inequalities that we have in this country are thrown into a sharp light, as well as the existing inequalities of pay, housing, access to green space. All the inequalities that we had just got exacerbated by COVID, but at least some of them were seen more clearly than perhaps they had been before. I think it's also clear that inequality issues have underpinned political and policy responses to the pandemic. And I think it's really clear that it's power and democracy that need to be at the heart of the solutions that we have going forward. Giving power to people, reforming capitalism, extending democracy into institutions, into decision making more broadly is the way forwards if we want to ensure we do build back better, bounce beyond, and create a more socially just society. So I'm going to stop. Really looking forward to hearing from Amy and from Violet, and then from having discussion with all of you after that. Thanks.
Brilliant, thanks, Kate. So I'm going to bring in Amy now. I didn't introduce Kate, but I presume you're all here because you read the blurb of what of why we're here. So hopefully I didn't do too much of a mess up there. Amy's from York Anti-Racist Collective, and she's going to give a perspective. Yeah, I'm just going to give the space over to Amy. So 10-15 minutes. Knock yourself out.
Cool. Hi. Can you hear me? Because I've got this headset on. Oh, cool. Okay. So I'm Amy, and I lived in York for 4 years, and I've just recently left as well. So this is really interesting, the time of this talk, and I've left for a number of reasons, but the biggest reason is stress, and one of these stresses is doing anti-racist work in York. So just quickly lowdown of what I've done over the last 4 years. I did my master's when I moved in women's studies. Then I moved on to do a year at the university. That's when I started to build my foundations with all the race organizations in York. I started to get involved with meetings. We'll go on to these meetings in a minute. And then for the last 2 years, I've worked at a women's centre. So I worked with women with multiple complex needs, trauma, drug and alcohol misuse, experiencing homelessness, the whole lot. So that's what I've been up to in paid employment. So yeah, okay. Where shall I start? So let's start with the meeting. So when I was at the uni, I started to build networks and stuff with all the I ended up on meetings. I'd look around and think, how did I get here? Like somehow I've just swiveled my way into all these like really important meetings. And I would be the only person of colour there more than like often. I would feel dismissed. I would feel not heard, not listened to. And yeah, there was loads of issues like personally that I just was really struggling. Also, a number of meetings were, well, one of them in particular was led by the police. And I think it's entirely inappropriate for the police to be leading a committee. These groups like got counsellors on, all these different people. But the police were leading a group specifically and a strategy on hate crime. And it was completely inappropriate. I felt so uncomfortable being on that meeting. That group was clearly for people to talk about them, those people who are marginalised, who experience hate crime. It was not inclusive at all. And I guess the final straw for me, not to sound really dramatic, but the final straw for me was this one meeting where I was the only person of colour, and I just felt like, like what are we actually doing here? So I kind of had a little like outburst, the angry brown woman stereotype thing, but it's fine. It was good. I needed to do it. Then after the meeting, I cried my eyes out for so long. I don't cry often, and I cried so much. So after this, I was like, I've had enough. I can't do this anymore. So as much as, it's a democratic, bureaucratic, it's a process, we go through these, we say we listen to people, but I could not get my point across. And I work on this stuff day in, day out. I know what I'm talking about. And that's what's really cool about this talk. This is the first time I've ever been paid to do a talk. Oh my gosh, and I can talk for 15 minutes without anyone interrupting me, without anyone dismissing me, and I know you're all listening, well, I hope you're listening, which is a new empowering feeling for me, because this does not happen, and has not happened for me in York. Okay, so they're the meetings. Then I decided, like, I am not a top-down person. I cannot go to these meetings anymore. It's not helpful. I can't do it. So I was like, forget that. I'm never going to one again, which I haven't, actually. No, I haven't. I promised myself. So then, so then Resurgence of BLM happened. And again, all the things that were organized were by white people. There was no leading Black kind of community that were like saying what we should get up to and what we do to support. It was white people again, which wasn't good enough. So I think I've just had like little confidence about doing my own thing. But then one night, like really late, I was like so unwell, like mentally from all of it. And I was like, right, I'm doing it now. And I was like typing all these words up, like, what should we do? Anyway, so I came up with York Anti-Racist Collective, and that is BAME led, and it's for BAME people in York only, because I had to, you know, and it's a bottom-up approach. Top down didn't work. I only have a limited amount of energy. I can't waste my energy talking to people who aren't going to listen to what I do. So I thought, forget that. I'm just going to do it myself and, you know, try and support people of colour in York, which is what we I hope we do. Well, we have done. So, you know, the first thing I did, you know, you got people to join you, of course. So I emailed like loads of people. I did loads of like messaging all my friends, everyone, getting all the people in, and asked about like what people's priorities were in York. BAME priorities, everyone was socially isolated. Everyone felt really, really isolated. And it's interesting because in all the committee meetings and all this stuff, no one across every single meeting talked about social isolation. Everybody talked about like racist attacks and things like that, like really quite stereotypical things that people of color experience. So it was really, yeah, you know, just ask, you know, ask us, what do you need, and we'll tell you. But I've lost trust in that process because nothing really comes of it in York. So we do it ourselves. So yeah, addressing social isolation, because we're all burnt out from these meetings and stuff. So we started a Facebook group just for BAME people. We're very all about protected spaces for BAME people. We what else do we do? Yeah, Facebook group. I feel like I use it so much. Like, this thing happened to me today. I don't know if it was a microaggression or not. It's really helpful. Also did loads of social events over the pandemic. And then kind of alongside all of this work, I was really thinking about trauma theory, and I was running a trauma course for the women at the Women's Centre. And that was by Stephanie Covington. Unfortunately, it's a very white course, like issues around LGBTQ, disabilities, and people of colour. Like it touched on it, but it wasn't integrated in the course. And I was like, I reckon I can do this. So I did tons of research into racial trauma. I think it's a fascinating and such important like concept and way of thinking about race issues and experiences of people of colour. And I wrote my own course for women, trans inclusive, that is all about healing from racial trauma. And it's interesting because I was writing this course, and then I've written like half the course, and I found this framework, and I was like, this is exactly what I'm talking about. I know this is evidence to know that I do know what I'm talking about. So it's called the Heart Framework. I can't remember who it is by, but you can find it. So it's healing ethno and racial trauma. And basically there's 4 stages. The first stage is to create protected spaces, so safe spaces. We did that with, just having it being for BAME people. The second thing is to acknowledge the trauma. So, I only found out the real story about colonialism in my early 20s. Like, I didn't know how much colonialism directly affected my family, which inherently affects me. Like, I didn't know, and I think that's just like unreal. So yeah, so it's acknowledge. How can you heal from something if you don't know what it's called? It's like the first step in healing. So so second thing is to acknowledge the trauma, validate each other, provide those safe spaces where if you think it's a microaggression, it's a microaggression. You experience that, it's real, and that is it's so amazing. And then the third thing is to create spaces where we can connect to our cultural roots. And within that, it's building really close and meaningful relationships with each other, really deep and meaningful relationships and friendships where we can rely on each other for support. We can't rely on a lot of services for support. We need to build those relationships ourselves. And in that, it's just, we can all love and care for each other. Like, what more could you want, And then the fourth thing is, then once, we're all connected, we're a group of people, we feel safe, we feel comfortable, now we're ready to take on social justice work. But I believe the stuff we're doing already, like, is social justice work, but it's not doing what you typically think anti-racist people are doing, which is like going to the council meetings and, you know, all that stuff, which I'm never doing again. Well, I might do, maybe when I get older and less sensitive. Okay, so that's, oh yeah, and the other, which Kate mentioned actually, the intergenerational trauma, I wrote a course about that as well. I don't know what happened to me because I have ADHD, so I'm not sure how I finished these projects, but I did. And it's a 4-week program which addresses the hidden histories of your family and how that affects your life, and kind of breaking the cycle through seeing how that's affected your life and what changes you can make. I'm all about action. If I've got an idea, I was like, let's do it because it's going to work. So yeah, so that's our perspective of York. I'm just going to add on, I don't know how long I've sought for. I'm just going to quickly talk about funding because I think that's interesting, that that's something that Kate brought up, and I think it's important because we're really struggling at the moment. So we're really scared to get any funding off anyone because there are so many, like, what's that phrase? You have to give something back, right? There's strings, there's always strings. And these strings are held by white people at the top of these funding bids. We are like, you know, we have to jump through these certain hoops. We don't want to jump through the hoops. We just want the money so we can have a nice time and like do nice things and heal and support each other. It's scary, the idea of like becoming a charity. We want to be non-hierarchical. We don't want to be a charity. We don't want to have the whole trustee thing. Like, that's not applicable for us. So it would be amazing to have a whole entire like makeover of the funding application process, everything, the structures, all of it. That would be excellent. But at the moment, yeah, that's not going to happen. So yeah, that's it. I'm going to stop there. Yeah, so I've had a complicated relationship with York and anti-racism. I'm still doing the groups remotely from where I live now. And yeah, I mean, I could talk for ages, so I'll stop there. Thank you so much.
Amy, thank you so much from this end. I was trying to like write some tweets as you were talking. I've managed one, but I was just listening to you. I was like, I've written nothing down. Hopefully people, Johnny, I feel like you're the person I can look to for help. Yeah, see, loads of notes. But yeah, Amy, thank you so much. Really brilliant to hear your perspective. And I think, well, the thing I did write on Twitter was that we need to make more space to hear about BAME's perspectives in our city, full stop. So that's what I got from what you just said. I want to hear more. Violet.
My notes are really all over the place. So I'm going to try and be a little bit concise, but I have so much to say and it might not all join up. And I've tried to kind of go, let's try and make it flow like a river. But actually, it's probably a bit more like a big, massive waterfall that just kind of splatters everywhere. So I'm going to try.
Sounds great.
This, but I don't want equality. I want something else. I don't want to have what everyone else has. I don't want what you have. I'm pretty sure you don't want what I have. What I want is equity. I want a society that treats me with fairness and impartiality. That's all. Don't want everything you've got. You keep your little pot. That's fine for you. Just give me what I need to feel like I'm part of this society. So I'm a Romani Gypsy, and as such, I'm a member of one of the most openly discriminated groups in the UK. My ethnicity denied me a fair chance at education. In fact, a university diversity admissions officer basically told me not to bother trying when I was explaining the obstacles that I had to overcome to enrol. I've been sacked from jobs when I was outed as a Gypsy. And in fact, I've only ever put my ethnicity on an application form when the job was around Gypsies or travellers, because I knew I wasn't even getting an interview, just like many other Gypsy people with the same thing. So recently, my father was given a really substandard medical support after his heart attack by a specialist. That was 18 months prior to his second heart attack. 18 months, had a heart attack, seeing a specialist. And every time he went to the appointment with the specialist, he mentioned that he biked past my parents' site, private site in the country. Specialist mentioned it at 4 different appointments. And never once did he refer my father to any medical examination or for other support, just got him there, talked to him, sent him home. It was only when he had a second heart attack in February, and instead of being sent to Leeds, he was sent to York Hospital, that another specialist got involved, and he's now waiting for an emergency quadruple heart bypass next month. You know, might have been a bit of a coincidence, but it's a really, really strange one, if you ask me. At times, I've been talked down to because I'm a little short redhead woman. But in fact, the insult of gypsy is never too far behind that, to be honest with you. If I get overly passionate, it's because I'm a gypsy. If I have a fibro fog flare up and I can't speak correctly, doesn't happen often, but here you go. It's usually seen that it's because I'm an inarticulate gypsy woman, not because of my medical condition. So whilst for many, intersectionality is a real issue when faced with inequality, I feel that we are looked at with such disdain by some in society that these other issues kind of fade into insignificance somewhat. You're never anything other than a gypsy. And a call to York City Council will prove that to anybody. Just ring up York City Council and say, I need some support. It's about gypsies. And before you say anything else, you referred to the temporary accommodation people. You referred to the enforcement team. And even if you get the words out, I'm from an organisation and I want to talk about the health, I want to talk about public health, blah, 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 blah. And then you mention the word gypsy, you immediately get diverted to the same group of people. Just try it. They might have changed it because I've been hammering on it for ages and we are getting somewhere. But up until a couple of months ago, that was literally it. You rang and the minute you said the word gypsy, you were transferred to enforcement or the homelessness team. So I don't want to go on too much about racism and discrimination that I face on a daily basis. And I'm happy to talk to any of you at another time if you're interested in the huge diverse group of people who come under the government and media enforced label of traveller. You know, I am Romney Gypsy, but sadly the word traveller includes me because that's what the media and government say it does. I'm going to try and discuss the actual title that Rebecca gave us, which is why equality is better for everyone. And this is where I lost it a bit because my baby started crying upstairs, so I'm sorry. If I have fair access to culturally appropriate accommodation, I am more likely to feel part of society. If I feel like I belong, I am more likely to feel it is worth my while to give back to that society with my time and my money. If I am a part of that society and have a good education, then I'm more likely to be aware of my health impacts and what that means to the NHS. If we are willing to see past labels, if we are willing to drop down our scary walls that we keep people behind and smash up those little boxes that we keep people in so so we can be free and we can be accessible to each other, that we can learn and we can give to each other. I am pretty sure that my community's contributions to society didn't end with the flamenco and Tyson Fury. We have so much more to give. We have so many amazing people among us, but sadly, the vast majority of us hide behind a wall of white British because we can. And some people go, you know, I talk to BAME people all the time and go, yeah, but you look white British, like it's, yeah, but that doesn't stop the fact that my DNA is Indian. That doesn't stop the fact that my medical conditions are based on my DNA. That doesn't stop the fact that the doctor that is talking to me sees a traveller. And to most, traveller means parasitic underclass. It doesn't stop any of that. And I'm not willing to deny what I am either, which some people have suggested. Why don't you pretend you're not a gypsy? Would you say to a gay person, why do you pretend you're not gay? You don't do it, but it's still seen as okay in 2021 for a person to say that to me. Literally say, why do you just pretend you're not a gypsy then? And that's where we are as a community in society today. If we look at society and how we got to where we are, we're an amazing, vibrant, interesting group of people. And it's not because we all kept behind our walls and kept in our boxes. It's because in the past we've embraced different cultures. And as much as it will be disputed, the Gypsy language is very much part of the English society. Mainstream words like dad, lollipop, and bungalow are all based in our language of Sanskrit. The flamenco is literally what it is today. We took it and we changed it and we made it into the flamenco. That guitar you hear in the background is the famous Gypsy guitars. All that has so much more opportunity to be embraced and made bigger if we just allow each other to speak and talk and get to know each other. And it's not why is equality good, it's why is inequality bad. We miss out on so much if we don't just accept each other on face value, get to know each other, and rather than believing what the media tell us, rather than believing what our neighbour's dog's friend once interacted with a gypsy and heard, you know, see a person and see what we can get from each other, see what we can give to each other. And that's what YTT, sorry, I'm YTT's director. That's what we're all about now. I got in there and I was like, right, we're not being exclusive anymore. We're opening our doors and we're about inviting those people out there to come in here and get to know us. And we're creating these sessions where people can just sit and talk and learn. And I think that's where we need to be. And I'm sorry if I went off one. Sorry if my internet dropped. I did notice people freeze occasionally. And I hope that's okay.
Violet, every time I hear you speak, I just feel like so filled up and like emotional and like angry and just, yeah, thank you so much. We have a little recording that I've been sent by Hilary, who has been working with the Centre for Applied Human Rights and has created this Community Voices project within, she's been doing a bit of work around the disability rights, specifically this year for the centre. So I'm just wanted to play that for you now. If I press play and then could someone give me a thumbs up if it sounds okay.
Hi, I'm Hilary Conroy. I'm the Disability Programme Coordinator in the York Human Rights City Network. I run the Community Voices project and support the York Disability Rights Forum. When currently able people talk about equality and diversity or inclusion, they often leave out or fail to fully consider disabled people and accessibility in a broad way. We talk a lot about parking and lifts, or that a venue needs to be wheelchair accessible, but think only of a small proportion of visible disabilities and fail to accommodate or meet the needs of all disabled people. Often, currently able people have not investigated their own relationship to disability or the lens they use when considering disability issues. A lot of people in the voluntary sector use a charity model, seeing disabled people as in need of their benevolent help, or the medical model, where ideas focus on fixing disability, aiming to erase it. Ableism is the discrimination of and social prejudice against disabled people based on the belief that currently able or typical abilities are superior. Disabled people are considered less valuable, expendable, and their lives a tragedy and not worth saving. This eugenicist ideology was laid bare during the pandemic and continues to today when people refuse to wear masks or get vaccinated because they feel their right to comfort is more important than a disabled person's right to life. However, while we must take into account clinical vulnerability to illness, we must be careful not to infantilize and dismiss the humanity of disabled people. In the words of Frances Ryan in her book Crippled, one of the most pervasive and damaging myths in modern liberal societies is the idea that disabled people are the most vulnerable. This is a byproduct of a culture that still widely associates disability with tragedy and perpetuates an individual analysis for something that is fundamentally structural. This attitude is now so prevalent that even people on the left use this language, where well-meaning non-disabled people profess concern over how austerity is hurting the most vulnerable. Disabled people, truth be told, do not need to be vulnerable. Contrary to the cultural myths surrounding disability, it is not inevitable for people with disabilities to be afraid, desperate, or isolated. Vulnerability comes when politicians choose to pull the support disabled people need in order to live dignified, fulfilling, independent lives, knowing full well the misery it will cause. Disabled people are bombarded with ableism all the time. People, strangers, approach them in the street to say they couldn't live like that, and if it happened to them, they'd probably kill themselves. Others, eager to help the poor disabled person, will take charge of their wheelchair without consent and move disabled people around like objects rather than people. Those with invisible disabilities and chronic conditions are told they are faking it or scroungers. They are subject to medical gaslighting and can wait years to be diagnosed and treated. Neurodivergent people face constant barriers because the world and social expectations see their differences as flaws and punish them to try and force them into acting like neurotypical people. Those who succeed in masking, as it's called, are rewarded for their efforts by society by gaining or keeping employment and succeeding in education. But this comes at a heavy cost to the individual's mental health and well-being, and burnout is a real threat. The social model of disability asks the world to stop disabling people, to accept and take account of needs and just meet them. physically accessible venues, options for phone, text, online and supported communication, quiet spaces, better training delivered by those with a variety of lived experience, requesting feedback and listening to it. Making things accessible can sometimes take time and money, but if you're not doing this work, you're cutting corners. Include access costs in bid for projects and events, add alt text and captions to your social media posts, involve disabled people in steering groups, executive and trustee boards, give them positions of power so they can make their own change. Join the York Disability Rights Forum and follow a variety of disabled people on social media. Sit down and learn. In activism, we are so often single-minded in our ambitions. We focus on a specific identity or experience and aim to bring about change. However, without considering the whole identities of people or the full experiences of their lives, we are only ever doing half a job, and this can be harmful. We need to collaborate, to share our knowledge, and to join together in coalition. Thank you.
Wise words, oh, as always, from Hilary. What a beautiful piece of writing that she sent over, and speaking as well. So I guess now is a really nice time to open up this conversation. I am pretty terrible at online hosting, so I don't know, I don't want to facilitate a conversation as such and like pass it around and ask questions, but I would really love to hear some of the people from the room who are in the audience. Like, if you want to ask questions or if you want to make a statement, please do open your mic and speak. But I like maybe just some reflections on from what other people have said. Kate, from what you've heard from these amazing women who have kindly brought their time and experiences to this event tonight. Yeah, can I hand it over to you and then whoever wants to talk?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, what privilege really to hear from you all. Amy, I am so sorry about those experiences that you had at the university, but I do hear you about the challenge of trying to overcome those barriers in that institution. I think, you know, in York, because it's a fairly privileged, white, middle-class place, it's really tough if you feel you don't fit. And I think the institutions within York, Violet, you were mentioning the council, but I'm thinking of you know, of the university and the other colleges and the bigger companies. There's a bit of sort of complacency, I feel, and there's a lot of language about doing the right thing that then doesn't get translated into actual inclusive strategy and action. You know, I've been aware of meetings and committees at the university that are supposedly about trying to solve a problem that are white dominated when they're not supposed to be about that issue. We have one full professor in the arts and humanities who is not white, just one. And so there's a long way to go, but I'm sorry that the experience was so stressful to you. I'm glad that you've found ways to do the work you want to do without causing yourself further stress. And Violet, glad at the same time to have heard earlier that institution is going to honour you for your work and how well deserved that is. We have to, I suppose, choose our own levels and our battles. You know, what can we do? You know, for Amy, it's making that decision about the work that she wants to do, the change she wants to bring about in the world. How can she do that and look after herself? That's a really important lesson, isn't it? Because too often we keep on trying to do the same thing, even when it's damaging to us and challenging. And Violet, it sounds to me as if you found ways as well to be yourself and pursue the social justice goals and the work you want to do with integrity. And for all of us to work with integrity and authenticity means recognizing what we can contribute, what we're good at, whether we're good at top down or grassroots up, whether we're good at doing something kind of backroom and a bit academic, or whether we're better, you know, out fighting on the barricades. And we all make our contributions in different ways. And the point is that they're all worthwhile. And it's the collaboration of those efforts and the recognition of solidarity, actually, among us, if we're trying to create a more just world, that solidarity is really, really important. You know, it helps us to be and live the change we want to see in the world. So thanks for letting me hear what you all had to say. But I'm really keen to hear what some of the other people who've joined us this evening would like to contribute.
Yeah, cool. Kate.
Thank you, and thanks everyone who spoke. It was really interesting to hear from everyone's perspective. I just want to commend Violet for starting the way that she did. I don't think it was controversial what you said. I think what's controversial is that people think claims like that are controversial, and it's because diversity and equality are these sort of toned down whitewashed terms, and I don't mean to, trying to use a polite word. I don't want to dismiss them or push them to a side because they're helpful for certain conversations, but I just find that a lot of the time we're plastered with words like radical, and the word radical has become something else when it just means we want something, we want justice at the end of the day for various things. And I find that we're talking about equality and diversity, which are really palatable topics and words. But I like that what Violet, it seemed like you were pushing those boundaries, and it's about more, it's about equity, it's about health, being alive. It's so much bigger. And yeah, I just like that you went there, and I'm glad that you did. But it was just really interesting overall. And to have lived experience and people to share their stories, I've really enjoyed. So thank you. And yeah, thank you, Rebecca and Design Week, for paying BAME people to just speak their minds, because like Amy said, and I literally said to my partner, Amy's talking to everyone the way she talks to me as a close friend, and there is nothing there that she's not whitewashing herself, she's not trying to be palatable, she's not trying to do it for anyone else, she's telling her own story. And it's not very frequently that BAME people get that opportunity. So it's definitely something to commend and recognise. So thanks, Design Week.
So just for a bit of context here, I met Violet on the systems change course, which is, I don't know if it's running again next year, but there'll be something similar run by the MCN network, and there'll be more info about that on the Friday event, which is an introduction to systems change. But that's how I know Kate, and then Kate introduced me to Amy to speak tonight, and Violet was on the systems change course as well, and I'm just feeling like so like energized by you guys and by the truth and by listening and hearing things directly. I think just gives so much more value and weight to the conversation, because I'm like even like you guys have been working on it for so many years on equality and diversity, and like when you hear about things like oh I don't know, like I don't know, Violet, if you want to have a little chat about the diversity festival that the council are we don't want to talk about it. Okay.
No, I don't think we should talk about it. Let's not spoil the evening.
Do you know, Violet, that's so funny, because I think that was one of the meetings I did go to, and I was like, I think I was like, this is a bad idea. Let's not do this. And then I never went back. I went to one and I was like, nope, no.
I feel like I should. This is the problem with York. You kind of feel like you should be there because this thing's going to go ahead anyway, but you kind of feel like you're there, and almost by you being there, you're kind of going, yeah, we're behind this and this is a good idea. And I'm not sure it is. And I kind of feel that it's, yeah, I'm not bringing it down. Yeah.
But I think there is something interesting around like grassroots action. Like York Design Week is a grassroots festival. We've managed to secure funding this year, whoop, so we can pay people to do like small bits of money to do stuff, which has been amazing, and lots of volunteer time as well. Like the amount of time that our team put in for free, like, is insane. Because we just want to like get these conversations out there and on the surface and not just forgotten, or like yeah.
I think a big problem with York is, and I'm glad somebody else said it, because I didn't want to say it because I looked visibly white. I didn't want to be the person that said it. It's incredibly white. It's painfully white. And no matter how, I mean, my own organisation still has a little bit of this inherited in it, because it was set up by non-Gypsy traveller people, and the trustees are still, you know, quite beautiful, lovely, caring people. But from that background of let's do good to the poor, disadvantaged. And that's the Diversity Festival comes from that place. And no matter how well-meaning it is, it's not owned by the people it should be owned by. It's owned by the council, and the impetus is from the council. And I just think if you went there with anything too controversial, would be like, no, you're not doing that at our festival, you know. And it's like, for me, it just felt like I need to be there, but I don't want to be there, if that makes any sense whatsoever. We need stuff that is from us, not about us. You know, actually, don't just tick a box and go, oh, we've got some disabled people, we've got some BAME people, we've got some gay people, we've got some young people. No, let us own it, let us have it, give us it, hand it over, and we'll make it fabulous.
Yeah, I think that's the angle we came at with Design Week. Was 3 designers really keen to make stuff better. Let's just do it. And we've done it like on shoestrings for the past 2 years, which has been fun and stressful, and we have a lot of burnout and all of the same, like, it's just, yeah, the do-it-yourself thing is amazing. It's tiring. Does anyone else want to come in at this point? Because we'd really love to hear some more viewpoints, ideas, solutions as well, like things that you're working on that are making a difference to, like, to challenge inequality in York. Like, those would be great to hear as well.
I'm going to waffle a bit, but bear with me. I'm a working class lad from Council Estate in Shropshire, and I came to York again in 2010 and gained my contemporary fine art degree. I'm part of the alumni of St John's University, which I'm quite proud about. I still feel as though in certain environments and spaces that because I'm not middle class, white, privileged, that I don't get heard. People listen to what I'm saying, but there generally tends to be sometimes, I'm not saying in this kind of environment, but I still feel like when I try and raise issues around equality, that because I'm not sort of middle class privileged guy with, you know, with that status that comes with it, that I don't necessarily get heard as much as I'd like to be, or that my opinion isn't valued with the same passion and vigor that I try and deliver it, you know, to raise an issue. So I just thought I'd throw that in there, really, because all you lovely people that have spoken tonight, I've sat here and I'm in awe of not only your knowledge and breadth and depth of knowledge, but your ability to speak out on these issues without fear of, if you like, being ousted into the place that I feel sometimes I've been placed in, that, well, you know, you're only a working class lad, so why does your opinion count in this sort of situation? So I just wanted to throw that out there, really. Maybe that's a failing on my part to have the confidence, but I don't feel it is. I think you're is particularly good at listening to people, but not hearing them if they're not, or they don't fit into a certain demographic.
It's not a failing on your part. It is a failing of the inequality within our society that makes all of us feel, or indeed recognize, that some people seem to be worth more than others. You know, that some people's voices matter more, that some people's access to resources is more privileged. Social class does matter in our society, and people from working class backgrounds do feel as if their status is inadequate compared to other people's, and you wouldn't feel that as much in some other societies that are more egalitarian and more equal. You wouldn't be feeling that that's your failure and that inhibits your right to speak or be heard. So it isn't you, Johnny. It is society.
Thank you for that, Kate. Just sometimes I wonder whether I'm spending time talking to myself and not doing good doing the good that I want to do in the places that matter to me. So thank you for that.
Can I just say as well, Johnny, I know Johnny, I do think you undervalue yourself a lot. Just to put that out there, you undervalue yourself a lot, and what you have to say, you undervalue that a lot. So you need to get over that and just recognize the power in yourself, okay? But what I will say is really messed up. What I'm about to say is there are times when I up my accent to a different Gorgia level. So this isn't my real accent. This is my palatable, every day I can deal with this accent when I'm dealing with other people so they can understand me and I'm not talking in my traditional Gypsy voice. There are times when I up this a step further and talk slightly better with bigger words and do not acknowledge the fact that I'm a Gypsy, because I know it gets me listened to more than if they think they're talking to a Gypsy CEO of a charity. They will listen more to a non-Gypsy CEO of a charity. And that's really, really messed up that that's a fact, but I know it is, because I've had actually people go, oh, so you are a Gypsy then? And then everything I've just said has been dismissed as being overly passionate, Gypsy propaganda. And I've had that said to me, literally been told, yeah, but that's just your Gypsy propaganda. And you kind of go, no, it's facts and it's research. I can show you it. So, you know, everybody has that level where, you know, they think they have to be different, they have to change, and their voice isn't valued. And what you've got to become really good at, that I learned from a very young age, is being a really good actor or actress. And just bullying yourself up to the point where you look so confident, nobody dare question your authority on a subject, which I think I do pretty well now.
Amy, if you've got any experience of that, you can share.
Yeah, no, I definitely. I actually, like, I'm sorry to change the conversation a bit, because I've been thinking about this, and now, I don't know, it's nice to feel comfortable to speak what I'm thinking. I think Violet sets that, creates that space, even over the computer. It's lovely. So I've been thinking about the actual title of this event and how it doesn't really sit comfortably with me, to be honest. What was it? What is it again? I've forgotten as well. Like, why is equality better for everyone? And to me, that just feels like, why does it need to be better for everyone? You know, why does, do you know, I feel like that title is coming from a perspective of a certain type of person to a certain type of audience, right? So this title is for people who have loads of privilege and need to know why it's important to support Violet and her community, to support me and my community. You know, that is what the title like comes across as, right? So I find that interesting, and I think from my perspective, I would have liked to think that we would embed teaching empathy, embed teaching like, you know, really important, valuable interpersonal skills from a young age. You know, that then, you know, it shouldn't be that we want, it should be, you know, you gain something from equality. It should be that we should just care for each other and be kind, you know. So I think, I don't know, I think the title of your book, Kate, makes a lot more sense than the title of this event. But yeah, that's just a reflection. I don't know if I was just
yeah, but Amy, authors never get to choose the titles of their books. It's the publishers that choose them. And you know, they make suggestions, and then you say, no, that doesn't sit comfortable with me, I would want you to tweak that, and they say, we think it will do well. Same with covers. You know, show a cover and go, what do you think? We go, no, it doesn't really put across the message of the book, and they go, we think it will work well. So
I would like to speak to that as well, just because it does feel like the audience here is a lot more grassroots, and it is a lot more like bringing in people from different groups who have these different perspectives to bring. One of the things that we are trying to do with Design Week is to try and bridge like the sort of the different realities that we're living in, I suppose. So like I guess what you're saying there, Amy, is really interesting. Like we're not necessarily here to know about what equality is. Like that's sort of like, well, yeah. But reading Kate's book, because I've read Kate's book only this year. I've had it on my shelf for about 3 years, but I never get around to reading things. But yeah, I think it's I'm not doing very well articulating what I'm trying to say here.
Do you want me to add a bit of something, Rebecca?
Save me.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think it's really interesting. I think probably what some of the conversation I think will be interesting to talk about is how we move forward around this, and where's the power, and how do we change. And I think, I suppose, you know, I mean, I work for the Equality Trust. I'm local groups organizer, so it's really nice to see Kate. And I think it's about how we kind of change hearts and minds around this issue, and actually, you know, reading the spirit level. Basically, equality, you know, when more equity is actually, you know, I mean, I know it sounds, I love your passion, Amy, and that kind of like, and perhaps I'm too long in the tooth and too old and cynical, and perhaps I should keep hold of that passion. But I suppose from a you know, wanting, you know, in terms of spheres of influence and in terms of how we get change, those people in power have, you know, need to realize that actually it is, you know, it's inequality is bad for all of us. And, you know, I think Kate could come in terms of statistically around kind of more unequal countries, even at every sphere, have like shorter life expectancy, more mental health at every level. And so I think in terms of like trying to have an inclusive argument, and I think it's interesting, because I think, you know, there's a balance to be had between who are we pandering to. I get what you're saying in terms of like, oh, let's, you know, but I think also it's about how do we kind of bring different voices, different, you know, let's not be in an echo chamber around stuff. How do we bring in, I've worked with somebody on who worked in Birmingham. I'm in Birmingham, who worked in a Birmingham Solidarity group, and we had a workshop on wealth on Monday, and they were saying, yeah, it's all very well kind of from an academic level, people saying, oh yes, you know, equality is great for all of us, etc., etc. But the people who you know, I'm you know, having conversations with on the ground and grassroots, who kind of are kind of, you know, not able to get food, I just do not see that, you know, are not kind of like, oh gosh, those awful people, the 1% of the population who are, it's because of them. There's a lot of stigma around kind of people and around the narrative around, you know, the deserving and the undeserving poor, and it's about how do we kind of open up those conversations to like a wider group, to say, well, actually, you know, equality is better for all of us, and books like The Spirit Level show that, if that makes sense. I don't know how coherent I've been around that. Right.
Thanks, Emma. I think just you speaking then helped me to try like get this in my head. But like what like the I think we do have a lot to learn still. I'm still learning. Like I haven't got like I'm not very deep into my understanding of this at all, and I think like yeah, it's just really important that we like have these conversations in these spaces where we can learn together. And like I'm just so grateful for being here and hearing from you. Go on, Violet.
I think that's why what Amy said is really important about, we shouldn't have to know about every single disadvantaged group or every single different group in society. If we just have an art with an H, with, you know, some compassion and empathy in it, then we as human beings should just accept that, yeah, that person's a little bit different from me, and that doesn't make them lesser, it doesn't make them a bad person, it just makes them different and somebody that I can gain from, somebody I can get knowledge from. You know, that's what we're lacking. You don't need to know everything about everybody. You'd be forever reading books and searching the internet and talking to different groups of people, and you'd always find somebody that you were offending anyway. Let's just learn some love and empathy, I think. And just to the stuff around winning hearts and minds, I did a really small project in Doncaster once where we just did this thing where we took pictures while people were speaking about things that were important to them. And it was all Gypsy and Traveller people. And it's like, okay, tell us what's important to you. And we recorded them speaking, and we took pictures of what they were talking about and put it together. And I worked in Doncaster for 10 years and felt like I moved nothing. We showed this exhibition in about 7 or 8 places, and people sat there crying, just listening to these people speak. And it was the first time I really felt that the white British people of Doncaster were looking at Gypsy Traveller people and seeing people, seeing human beings, not seeing a problem, not seeing an issue, just seeing somebody they identified with, because they were identifying with the woman talking about her children. They were identifying about the kids that were talking about their chickens and their dogs, the girl that was running the race for life for her mother's hospice, you know, that she was dying in and things. People recognise that was people issues. And I think that's what we need. Just let's get away from black, white, Gypsy, Traveller, gay, but people. Let's just be fairer to people. That's all we want.
And let's
Yeah.
use
Sorry, Kate.
Let's use different messaging. When we first set up the Equality Trust, actually, you know, Richard Wilkinson, my co-author, his brother said to us, you need some poetry on there. You know, you need some poetry, you need some music. And I said, we're not going to have any poetry, we're not going to have music, because we're about data and facts and statistics, you know, and that's what we do, and that's what people need to learn. And then actually when we were in South Africa, I think it was the first time I was really challenged about it, because somebody said to me, how can I take your message to my village? Because people there, they don't read. So I need some music and I need some dance, right? So I'm like, yeah, okay. And then somebody wanted to make a play about our book, you know, a sort of music and movement staged interpretation. And then someone else wanted to make a film, and they made it with stories, you know, stories. And I have come to realize that we all learn things in different ways, and we all communicate in different ways, and we all hear things in different ways. And so it's not like there's a fact that people need to know, or a piece of knowledge that people know. We come to our knowledge of the world through different routes. And so some people like to come to events like this and talk and hear, and other people want to read something, and other people want to immerse themselves in an art exhibit. And I think all of that's fabulous. I've changed my mind. Sorry, Amy, you were going to go.
I think I was going to say, yeah, I think that's why the title is strange for this group, or maybe just the way that I work and Violet works is that, you know, we want to show people how to empathize with our communities, to understand us, to listen to us, to hear us. We don't want to tell you why quality is better. Do you know what I mean? I'm not doing that. You just need to understand like our perspective and listen and learn. And I think that's through, like, we've done so much through creative. We've actually been given some funding today to do some creative stuff, but we have to become a charity first, which we don't want to. But anyway, so like, that's like so important, like to us, is like ways of expressing ourselves. Yeah, you said it really well, Violet. Thank you.
Amy, do you need to be a charity to receive that funding? Is that the issue?
So any sort of funding that is, so I've actually applied to a few bids, organisations that are led by women of colour only, and there are no rules. They just give you the money if they like the project. With the ones that we apply for that are majority white owned, it is like, you need to be this, you need to do this, you need to tell us this, you need to do this. You know, and it's too much. We're so tired. We just need a bit of money to keep doing some nice stuff with each other. Yeah, so
just remember, when we first set up the Equality Trust, we were not a charity, and there were lots of sources of, you know, funding and things that we didn't have any access to because we were not a charity. But actually, a charity, the Joseph Rowntree Charitable Trust, agreed to receive charitable money on our behalf and then give it to us because they felt we were doing something good. And it's a not allowed charitable object to try to reduce inequality. That's not considered something that a charity can pursue, but they said it fit with their Quaker values. And so they were willing to kind of take the risk and do that. So you might be able to find a charity that is established that might help you access money that way.
That's it. And we've considered this as well, but the only issue is you know, you're answerable to someone. Yeah. Like, you know, all the time I've raised ideas and stuff, I've always been, no, we can't do that. No. That I do not trust another organisation to hold our money and let us do what we want with it. And the thing is as well, because we're an intersectional group, you know, if we need to spend the money on, you know, LGBT community as a whole, including white people, because there's a crisis going on, we're going to use it for that. Do you know what I mean? We're going to jump around. We're not just going to stick with people of colour. If there is a serious crisis like trans violence, you know, sex workers, you know, if there's a serious thing going on, we'll shift. And I just don't want to have any authority. I want BAME people to have the money so we can just do what we want to do and be trusted. But yeah, don't think that happens in the real world.
Amy, I used to run a time bank and stuff like that years ago, and I've run a number of unincorporated associations that were never charities, but you can get funding. And Joseph Rowntree gave me funding for the time bank, and I was never a charity. I mean, I've had unincorporated associations, which is basically to just have a bunch of rules, just need a basic governing document. But I never wanted to be a charity either, for exactly the same reasons as you said. But either that or the kick model. But I'm happy to talk to you about the different governance models if that'd be helpful.
Yes, 100%. Oh my goodness. Kate, who is probably still on the call, would be so, this is music to our ears because we don't know what to do at all.
I'll go back to my old folder from my CVS days and see what I can dig out.
Yes, thank you.
Amazing, making connections. Oh, thank you so much. You yeah, I had no idea I have no idea what's going to happen most of the time with most things that I do. So that was another beautiful occasion of chaos and some order and some prep. I feel like you guys did such a good job. Thank you so much, and thank you, Kate, for your time. Thank you, Violet, for your time. Thank you, Amy, for your time, and everyone who's spoken. I think so. One of the things we were going to do is look at the idea of setting up a branch of the Equality Trust in York as part of the MCN network. We had a really initial meeting with Emma and Helen Graham, who's from My Future York. But it's that question: do we want to be doing this, like setting up another thing, or do we want to be just actioning stuff and like starting to get stuff off the ground and like supporting things that are already happening? Yeah, so much to think about. And I'm in a noisy brewery, and I hope the music isn't too loud for you guys, as it's too loud for me. Yeah, I'm gonna close off the meeting. It'd be really nice if people want to put anything reflective in the chat, just as a checkout for the day. Would be really brilliant. Any just insights, or if anyone's feeling like they want to put anything out there, feel free. And thank you so much. And it'd be really nice if you want to unmute your mic and say goodbye before you leave. But I'll just close the meeting, and then Kate, Violet, and Amy, if you wouldn't mind just keeping on for 2 minutes just to say bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you. Thanks, Rebecca, for
nice to meet you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nice to see you, Emma.
Yes, you too. See you soon.
My mum's still, Mum, you have to go. Mum, leave. Just you know how to. Oh, she's actually still there. Oh, she's gone. Oh no, she's still there. Mum, you have to go.
I can remove. Shall I remove?
Yeah, remove her. Yeah. Sorry.
What do I want to report? I'm removing Claire as well. There we go.
She's so funny. She's always like, anything I do, she's like, oh, send me the link. So sweet.
Oh, thank you so much, and thanks for like such a vibrant conversation. It felt really new.
Sorry if I go off on one.
So I feel the same though. Like, just
People like it. They like to hear you speak from the heart.
yeah.
I'll be honest, when you're kind of a professional, you kind of do have to tone it down quite a lot.
Yeah, I think because I've left York now, I'm like, I've got nothing to lose.
Yeah, I just occasionally got, I don't care.
Yeah. Oh, it's funny.
I went to Tory Party conference the other week.
Oh gosh. Oh wow.
We've been doing a report on the impact of COVID on children in the north of England. And my colleague at Liverpool now, we both told we needed to go to party conferences to, talk about it. He went to Labour, which is like being the warm bubble bath. They're doing a fringe event at Labour Party conference.
I've done a Labour fringe.
Yeah. And I drew the short straw and got the Tories.
Oh no.
I didn't want to go all the way to Brighton. So I went to Manchester. Anyway, there was a really horrible woman in the room. She asked really horrible questions. And then at the end of it, she said, "Are you that Kate Pickett that wrote The Spirit Level?" Just thought afterwards I should have said, no, that's not me. I'm always getting that.
Really? Oh god.
And she came up after, she was so horrible. She was basically one of those people that thinks that if you give any kind of support to people who are poor, they will spend it on